communicating. That makes sense. That's really cool. And I think that's probably, like we had said about when we were reading Frere, one of the main reasons that like the government is corrupt, because they're so arrogant, the politicians, that they don't want to be to debate. They don't want to be challenged. They just want what they want, and it's not right when we're supposed to have a like democratic republic sort of, everyone has their own ideas and opinions, and we're supposed to go with what's best for the majority. And yet that doesn't really happen. Oh yeah, that really angered me. This excerpt from the trial of the Chicago 7 on page 5, when it talks about, it's kind of summarizes like these 150 lawyers gathered in Chicago to picket the federal building and protest against Judge Hoffman's arrest of the 4 lawyers. And so they did this big protest, and the judge comes out with a whole bunch of like policemen and stuff, marshals, and they surround them, and he says he's gonna hold like court right there, and someone yells, "Fuck you, Campbell," and then there's silence, and then everyone just kind of walks away.
I know, like, the judge leaves, but then the lawyers leave too.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't get. Like they had a chance, they pushed the judge back.
Yeah.
They toppled their bishop, their queen, to, like, use an analogy, metaphor thing.
I like that, that's a good one.
But then they back off too.
I know, that's ridiculous. I mean, they went through all of that trouble, the energy of putting it all together and getting up there.
And then they, like, don't do anything about it once they have the hand.
Just because someone used profanity, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I understand some people are not okay with profanity, but that doesn't mean, like he said right here, that they could have said that they did not support personal obscenities, but they were not leaving. Or they could have all said it together at the same time.
I like the second one.
Yeah, I would have too. But I don't know, let's start a chant. But
they let the initiative pass from them to the judge and achieved nothing.
Exactly. Achieved nothing. That really angered me. I was like, dang it.
They organized. They had their chance.
And they just threw it away.
I guess that's what he's wanting to do. Like Alinsky, he wants us to feel angered and missed opportunities.
Right.
So, like, if we're ever activating for something.
Right. Like he said, the next paragraph on 6, he says, radicals must be resilient, adaptable to shifting political circumstances, and sensitive enough to the process of action and reaction to avoid being trapped by their own tactics and forced to travel a road not of their choosing. So instead of being caught off guard by that, they should have, like, adapted to it quickly and made it useful to them, which I don't know why they didn't. It makes me very sad, but
they'll learn from others' mistakes.
Right. And and then the next page is he's saying that societies, on page 7, societies discourage and penalize ideas and writings that threaten the ruling status quo. And talks about Thoreau's brief essay on the duty of civil disobedience, and how there's not very much literature about having it change, and yet on the haves there's a lot of literature justifying the status quo.
Yes.
So there
are many. It says on page 7, there are many phrases extolling the sacredness of revolution, that is, revolutions of the past. So with the passage of time, it says the older the revolution and the more historical it is, the more sacred or like right or correct it becomes.
It's glorified.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even if the ruling power, the ruling class didn't accept it before, now they do because it's over and done with. So
they're no longer challenging us, so it's okay. Now that it's over, they don't mind as much.
Yeah.
And then they glorify it and they make it sound like it's okay. It's great. That's what our country is founded on. And then hypocritically they turn around and they're like, no, you can't challenge me. We're not going to change. What's wrong with you?
It's like what I said before on passive people thinking that history evolves on its own, that revolutions happen on their own, and that it's kind of saying in here that since there aren't any writings on social change, then social change only it seems to happen in history. It's like saying that the past is what happens in the past is unobtainable for us now, and that the future will, again, like I said, happen by other people's hands, and that we can just sit back and watch it happen.
Right. It just all seems very ridiculous that they would be, well, I mean, I've seen it before, that they're so hypocritical, but when you think about it, it's true. They make a big deal about the civil rights and, that was like a glorified moment in history, when women got the vote and when, African Americans got the vote. And
back then, they were like, giving them the finger. No, we won't give you the vote.
Yeah, they thought that they were subhuman below them, and they're like, oh, well. And it's funny because they don't say, oh, well, we were wrong, They never say that. They're just, oh, well, okay, you can have it now. Yay!
So on page 11, after the part, the ideology of change, there is a part that says irreverence is essential to questioning, and that curiosity is compulsive. And I never thought about it that way before. Like, to question someone is to basically commit sacrilege on their image.
Right.
Like, what they put forth for others to believe. But you're all like, why? And they're all like, you're breaking down boundaries when you ask someone.
And that's, not only, it doesn't just tie to religion, like when they say, well, why do you believe that, it's in pretty much every aspect of life. Why, well, like little kids, well, why is the sky blue,
Because it just is.
Just stop. It's because that's what the textbook says, I don't know, it just seems like curiosity, like he says, it becomes compulsive, and it's something that everyone has very early, and yet it's usually stifled by I guess the system. Parents learn from their childhood and they just kind of pass it on, so that by the time our generation comes, stop asking so many questions. And that's really sad, because questioning is one of the things that leads to good critical thinking. So I think that's what makes it hard for people to critically think in our generation, because we're not used to questioning it. I know for me, once I got into honors classes in high school, and the teacher would ask, well, why do you think that? We were amazed. What do you mean, why do we think that? That's what the book says.
That's how I felt too.
We all stared at each other, and then barely you see one hand come up. Maybe this? And then before, after a while there's a discussion and everyone's talking and everyone's thinking, and it's really, really refreshing.
Yeah. And it's like you're being given permission to think. You know? Like, you shouldn't be able to get permission to think, but that's essentially what it's.
Yeah, in the public school system, it really feels like a lot of the time you're just not allowed. I remember being told not to raise my hand anymore because I was answering too many questions. She said, just give everyone else a chance, but no one else knew the answer. But she repressed me because I did. And so it just seems like if our school systems are doing that, to children at a young age, how do you expect them to grow into adults and citizens who can think for themselves when they're taught not to?
Yeah.
It seems paradoxical and just it's kind of scary. So, what else does he say? He goes on about I like that. On page 12, towards the end, it says, it is painful to accept fully the simple fact that one begins from where one is, that one must break free of the web of illusions one spins about life. Most of us view the world not as it is, but as we would like it to be. I think that's very true. People, I know sometimes I catch myself just thinking, oh, well, we have politicians and we have representatives, it'll be taken care of. When I know in reality, if we don't vote, if we don't take the measures to ensure that our representatives are doing what we want, it's not going to be taken care of. If we don't speak up, no one's going to listen. And yet, it's so much easier, to sit back and just, on CSI.
You stand on the sidelines instead of being in the game.
Like when we went to the jail, and she was saying they were comparing like CSI and like the cop shows to the real life cops. It doesn't happen. They don't catch the bad guy every time so quickly. Sometimes not. They just don't, and they can't find him. I mean, we like to look at the TV and think, oh, that's our government, so quick and sure and confident, and yeah, it's not
that way.
No, it's not at all. So I thought that was really good little quote there. And he says later on the same page 12, political realists see the world as it is, an arena of power politics moved primarily by perceived immediate self-interests. He talks more about, I think, self-interest later too, but right here he uses the example about the bishop. He says, well, like he's a priest now, but once I'm a bishop, I'll get the office and I'll have the power to do a lot of good Christian things. And then he's a bishop, and then he says, well, maybe I'll wait till I'm a cardinal. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to put my energy into becoming a cardinal once I get there, and where does it end? I mean, really?
Yeah. So in the end, it becomes for his own self-gain and not for the benefit of others.
Right.
That he should be serving and thinking about.
Yeah, you would think, even as the priest, you can do more good in your community by putting your energy towards your community than trying to become a bishop, And ideally, you would believe that by doing good things for the local community, you would get promoted, Mm-hmm. That's how you become the bishop, by, you do so much good and the people around you see where you are and how good you are, and so but apparently religion and that kind of thing is just as political as the rest of it. So that's just another illusion gone down the drain.
On page 15,
mm-hmm.
It says, life seems to lack rhyme or reason or even a shadow of order unless we approach it with the key of converses. Now, first I thought of the shoe, but then, duality is what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Is when we think about duality, we begin to get some dim clues to direction and what life is all about. It's in these contradictions and the tensions that they create that creativity begins.
Mm-hmm.
And creativity, I think of creativity as self-expression.
Mm-hmm.
Like one's own thoughts, one's reactions to the world experiences. So unless you're, I think basically what he's saying is you can't really live